Welcome to Private Equity Profits. Clifford Locks is a certified board of director, a trusted confidant to CEOs, C-level exec, and high-potential employees to help them clarify goals, unlock their potential, and create actionable strategic plans. Seth Greene is the nation's foremost authority on growing your portfolio companies with direct response marketing. He is the founder of the direct response marketing firm Market Domination LLC, and he is an 8-time best-selling author who has been interviewed on NBC, CBS, Forbes Inc., CBS Money Watch, and many more. Cliff and Seth interview top players in the financial sector, focusing on private equity firms, venture capital companies, and family offices, discussing developments and trends shaping the industry. These experts will share with you how they've grown their businesses and increased profit, and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Cliff Locks.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Private Equity Profits Podcast. I'm Cliff Locks, your host. Today, our guest is Chris Rawley. Chris Rawley founded the Harvest Returns in the fall of 2016 with the intentions of providing farmers with flexible, responsive funding sources by connecting them to investors. His passion for bringing more people closer to the producers of their food is reflected in the company's motto, Democratizing Investments in Agriculture. He's the fund manager of the company's Sustainable Agriculture Opportunity Zone Fund. Chris is a native of Dallas, Texas, and currently resides in Fort Worth. After several years as active duty naval officer, his interest in real estate investing began as a property manager with JLL, running a $100 million commercial portfolio in Dallas. Subsequently to that position, he held corporate management roles in electronic data systems and L3 communications, and served as a defense consultant at the United States Special Operations Command in Blackbird Technologies. He's invested in residential and commercial real estate, including income-producing agricultural, for more than 20 years. Chris is the captain in the United States Navy Reserve, having served in Afghanistan, Iraq, Africa, the Persian Gulf, and the Western Pacific. Chris, thanks for serving our country, and welcome to the show. We look forward to learning from you.
Appreciate you having me on today, Cliff. Thanks.
Same. Tell me about your background and how you ended up with the investing sphere.
So as you kind of saw my biography, started out doing a lot of traveling with the Navy and all over the world, as a matter of fact. Then right after I got off active duty, I worked for JLL. So I really kind of caught the real estate bug there. It's kind of in my DNA because my father worked in self-storage. He was one of the pioneer developers in self-storage in Dallas, decades and decades ago. And his grandfather was in drugstore development way back in the 1950s, predecessor for Walgreens and CVS you see on every corner. So it kind of is a family business being a real estate entrepreneur. But I began investing about 20 years ago and have been investing in all different asset types, and more recently became invested in agriculture, or very interested in investing in agriculture.
Very exciting. You're a reservist. What motivated you to serve your country, and how does this service contribute to your success in business?
It's just one of those things I had in high school, a desire to go out, and kind of grew up in that Cold War era. And then by the time I got in the Navy, the Cold War was kind of winding down, and the war on terrorism and other conflicts in Iraq and elsewhere were winding up. So I did it and enjoyed it, and have really benefited from my experiences there. From a business perspective, both from learning how to lead organizations and lead people, but also some more soft skills like negotiation, but more importantly, probably risk management. And that's really helped in my investment career.
Very positive. Tell us about your career path out of college. You worked in real estate, you got property management experience and the defense industry. What knowledge did you gain through these experiences?
When I worked in real estate, obviously I kind of learned the mechanics of real estate investment and all those things about how to make money with real estate, whether it's office buildings, which is what I was involved in, or warehouses and industrial buildings, which I did a little bit of as well. But then on the tech side of things, learned to appreciate automation and processes and scaling companies and working with larger clients. And that kind of led me around 2014 to combine the two ideas of investing in farming on an automated sort of platform. And that's how we built Harvest Returns.
A lot of automation taking place at this point. I see some AI going out there, quadcopters. As we look at the fertilizer prices and fuel prices, it's affecting food prices.
For sure.
Your experience with the Navy Reserves led you to invest in agriculture. What do you see around the globe that sparked your interest? What opportunities do you see?
Yeah, well, so, as I mentioned, I travel a lot and I travel to developing countries, up until I'd say very recently in this country, we've got some supply chain issues. And as you said, a lot of food inflation these past 12 months or so. And I think we're going to see more of that, unfortunately. But in other parts of the world, people just don't take for granted their food system. They either have to grow their own food or they buy it in a local market. And I saw that and kind of began to gain an appreciation for agriculture and farming and the farmers and the people that produce it. And I grew up as a city boy, so I really didn't have that appreciation until I did some travel and started talking to farmers and things like that. From an opportunity standpoint, agriculture and real estate are the two industries that touch every single person on earth. Everyone has to live somewhere and everybody on earth eats. Especially agriculture. It's a $1.75 trillion industry globally. And the fact that the consumer population of the world is going to continue to grow, at least until 2050, the projections. And the other dynamic there is as people and societies become richer, they consume more calories. The amount of food that we're going to have to produce on Earth in the next 20, 30 years is a pretty significant leap from what we produced to thus far. So I think from an investment asset class, it's a pretty compelling opportunity.
$1.7 trillion is a substantial market share. Tell us about harvest returns. What is the driving motivation behind the business, and what is your aim?
Yeah, so the reason we started this is because I did want to invest in a farm. I found out it wasn't easy to do, and there weren't a lot of opportunities there. So our initial motivation was to provide opportunities for individuals who want to diversify their portfolio to invest in farms and ranches across the country and even across the world, and do it in a very streamlined process to produce, to access these private equity deals and do it without a lot of friction. And what we've learned is that there's also a big problem in the agriculture finance system, especially here in the U.S., because it's not really optimized for other than farmers who are kind of growing row crops, but not necessarily on the specialty side.
Your motto is democratizing investments in agriculture. What traditionally inhibits investment in agriculture, and what makes it not so accessible?
Well, like I said, when I first I wanted to try to invest in a farm, I found out a few things. One, most farm investors in the U.S. are just land investors. So that's, a lot of people doing that. It's a way to make a lot of money, but it also requires a lot of capital upfront. Potentially, it requires some know-how. You have to know if you're going to invest in production land, like we've seen many very high net worth people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett doing in the past several years. It requires, of course, they're out hiring farm managers. So know-how, capital up front, and time. We just wanted to do it so that we took some of that out of the equation for the individual investor, and just made them able to come into these private placements without, obviously we want them to do their own research and due diligence. But as far as going out and sourcing the deals, we take care of that. As far as, looking at the way the deals are structured and negotiating with the farmer, and ensuring that they've got a quality team together, that we're taking care of that as well.
Let's go in deeper. What kind of opportunities lie in investments in agriculture?
On the Harvest Returns platform, we have a few different verticals we focus on, and that kind of differentiates us from some of the other opportunities one might have to invest in a farm or a ranch. One of the things that we like is grass-fed livestock. So, every cow or sheep out there eats grass at some period of time in its life. There's the finished part, which is at the last part of before a cow goes to be slaughtered, is how they're finished. So a lot of cattle are these days, most of the cattle in the U.S. are finished on grain. That's in a feed yard. That is dependent on the grain prices, which are rising and will rise a lot more here in 2022. Grass-fed, it takes longer to bring a cow up to a weight. Some people say it tastes better. It's more nutritious, but it also commands a premium price. We like that, and we offer opportunities for investors to get in that. One of the other areas we're kind of unique in is indoor agriculture. Most of the leafy greens that we eat in the United States and a lot of the vegetables are produced in Salinas Valley, California, and it has to be shipped all over the country, and that takes time. You're relying on trucking companies, and of course there's some supply chain issues now, and it's also, from an energy standpoint, it consumes a lot of money to ship a head of lettuce from California to New York. So we're investing in these, or in giving our investors opportunity to invest in both small vertical farms that are locally produced, urban grown produce, but also in larger regional greenhouses all over the country where produce growing indoors is done on a larger scale. 365 days a year, rain or shine, or even winter. And it's a controlled climate. It takes a lot of the variability and risk out of growing produce, takes the drought, the water situation, takes a lot of potential disease, the amount of fertilizer is greatly reduced, and many more benefits.
We're talking about hydroponics. Do we agree?
Yeah, primarily these are hydroponics, but there's other flavors of indoor agriculture. We just closed a deal, aquaculture. So fish are being grown indoors now, more and more in the United States. It's a very sustainable way to grow fish rather than trying to catch them wild caught. Most fisheries are being depleted, and so this is much better for the environment, and it produces a very consistent quality product.
That's very positive. I did see an operation. I'm living on Long Island, and it was hydroponics, but it also had the agua, or the fish side of fishing, as part of it. And the waste product was actually the fertilization for those plants. So I thought it was a very, very positive solution.
Right.
What makes the agribusiness a growing asset class, and where is the sector headed?
Well, technology, why is it growing? And we covered that as far as the population is going to continue to grow. People are going to consume more food. Where is it going? Technology is being implemented for the first time in a long time. There's agriculture, like many industries, goes through waves. The last big wave was sort of the industrialization of large-scale farming in the 1950s and 60s, where not just mechanization was brought on with these large, combines and everything we've seen before, but also large-scale use of fertilizer and chemicals. And that had some, the pros and cons. The downsides being it's necessarily an environmentally safe way to grow food. There's a lot of pesticide runoff and things like that. Today, we're seeing basically the internet revolution that happened in many other industries 20 years ago is starting to hit agriculture. So you've got precision agriculture where you've got sensors in the ground. The data is uploaded to the cloud. It allows a farmer to do what might have taken him weeks to do, to walk a field and figure out which parts of the field were not getting enough water or too much fertilizer or not enough fertilizer. Now that can be done by drones or sensors or satellite imagery, things like that. Robotics is making up for labor shortages in the ag industry. You're seeing a lot of that automation that's coming in other sectors now to the ag side.
That's a very robust answer. In other words, we're really seeing technology come into the field and reduce costs, increase production, reduce waste. You're also sharing, let's bring the agriculture closer to where the consumer is. We see real estate at this point is going to need to repurpose some of the facilities that don't have the high occupancy rate, sometimes in our inner cities. What are the different areas of agriculture-related investments, and how varied is the space, and what are the risk-reward comparisons?
That's a good question. It varies. So when most people think of investing in agriculture, and there's other platforms out there, row crops, so people going out or companies going out and buying large plots of land to grow corn and soybeans. That's what a large chunk of the agriculture production is in the United States. As an investment asset, it's good. The returns are lower, high single-digit returns, low, tens digit returns, depending on land appreciation, commodity prices, things like that. This is the land that is being bought up by the likes of Warren Buffett, but there's also farmland REITs and things like that. The deals that we look at are potentially higher. Some of them involve specialty types of crops like tree nuts, also things like vineyards. We recently closed a deal in Texas where consumes a lot of wine, but most of the wine is made from grapes that are grown in California. We have a robust wine market in Texas, but not so much of a robust vineyard. So we're bringing some of that scalability of California production to Texas. The ag tech side is big. We like the indoor ag, and of course, investing in. We recently started about a year ago, investing in these early stage ag tech companies that allow one to basically make a venture capital like investment, or an angel investment into some of these ag tech startups, which is an alternative to the VCs for the startups themselves.
That's a very valuable way to really help the industry move forward, is supporting our entrepreneurial community, and that's where the innovation comes from. And at that point, it can be very localized or cover global, depending on what they're bringing to the market. I work with a company, and then we have something called Grow Box. So it's container farming, but it's modular. And then the idea of using NFTs to fund those boxes. And then there's a community sitting there in robotics in the box. And you're looking at, it's hydroponics, LED lighting, it's a closed environment, and seeing what the automation that will take place in those units over time, it gets closer to where the consumers are. So it could actually sit in the back of a Walmart. And now you're really getting close. What are we producing? Should we produce some greens, things that have high value to it? Is California running out of water at this point?
Yeah, it depends.
Stress?
It depends on the location. A lot of it's self-inflicted wounds, but due to their poor management practices and refusal to build reservoirs and things like that, which is unfortunate, and just, they're trying to do right, probably with good intention environmentally, but it's backfiring. Regardless, I think things like, growing produce in the back of a Walmart, or, basically reducing that supply chain to near zero. We have an indoor farm in our Opportunity Zone Fund that's a restaurant, but it's got a farm in the basement. So it's, the greens are produced and they go right upstairs and for consumption.
That's fresh, very fresh. What type of investors do agribusiness and agricultural technology appeal to?
We have a wide variety of investors, and we talk to them as much as we can to kind of learn what kind of deals they like. But generally self-directed folks, same kind of people that would invest in real estate, private placements, people that are looking for sustainability, and you hear the ESG term quite a bit. But the farms that we do work on, we try to have a bias towards environmentally sustainable, but also producing jobs, keeping farmers farming. There's about 2 million farmers in the U.S. and the average age is growing. So we work with a lot of non-traditional ag entrepreneurs, younger folks, women, families that are trying to build a farming business, and they just need some capital. So from a social aspect, I think it's great. Some of our farms employ former prisoners and things like that. And so there is definitely a social aspect to what we do as well.
A lot of our investors are looking for ESG solutions, and what you bring to the market really fits it extremely well. So what are the benefits to the farmers to seek out investors instead of traditional bank loans?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that the ag finance system is basically optimized for row crops. It kind of grew up that way, and that's the USDA guarantees those loans because that's where some of the lobbying is, especially in the corn and the ethanol industry. And the ag finance system is very local as well, and that's changing. There's other startups that are do loans now, but what we offer is the chance for these smaller companies to get outside equity investors that they may not be appealing to a venture capital firm because they're not going to grow in high multiples, but they still need that capital to grow a profitable business nonetheless. And we give them an opportunity to do that. And we also offer other farmers who are just kind of burned out with the banking system, don't want to leverage. A lot of the farmers live on their land, so they don't want to leverage it because they don't want, even if they're making money, they don't want a bank to be able to kind of take their family homestead from them in their homes. A lot of people don't realize that most farmers are very highly levered up, and a lot of farmers, much more so today than ever, are tenant farmers. They don't farm on the land that they live on. There's other landlords, and we see, as obviously Bill Gates he's not farming. He's paying somebody to farm for him.
Okay. So the leasing of land to those that are going to farm is what you're sharing. It is a large part of the market.
Right.
Is it about 79% of the farmers are small farmers at this point?
Yeah, I've heard statistics kind of like that. They are mostly small farmers. Most, an even higher number are family farmers. And of course, some of those families are, the Driscoll family, strawberries. You can't, that's a very big, multi-family, but many more, smaller families.
Okay, I appreciate that. No, it's nice to support small businesses and bring a viable solution that you bring it. This finance is key because it's seasonal and they need to be able to have all that in place prior to the growth season. Is there anything I haven't touched on that you would like to add or expand on?
Yeah, I'd just say that farming, agribusiness, farming, ranching is not well known to a lot of investors. Certainly wasn't to me a decade or so ago. Mm-hmm. So it's important to learn more about it, and it's definitely a compelling asset class. We try to educate as well as provide investment opportunities. Things like going on this podcast help us do that, where people may not have thought of investing in a farm, and we think it's important it's important to help improve our food system and support our farmers. So, people are looking to diversify a little bit. I think farming is a good way to do that.
How can our listeners contact you? Are there any links you would like to share?
Sure. The best way is to go to our Harvest Returns website. Of course, we're also on social media, like most companies, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, those places. We have some of our educational content on as well. Feel free to follow us and learn more.
Why don't you spell the URL for them? our listeners?
So it's HARVESTRETURNS.com, harvestreturns.com.
I want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us, Chris. You provided some valuable insights into agriculture investments and the benefits of working with the Sustainable Agriculture Opportunity Zone Fund. I appreciate you sharing your story, your strategies with us. Our listeners will gain valuable insights. I want to thank our listeners. I look forward to being back with you shortly for another episode of the Private Equity Profits Podcast. The show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC.